Hello, everyone, and welcome to another webisode of the Fast Chats. I'm Rochelle Butler of the San Joaquin Valley Clean Energy Organization, and we appreciate you being with us today. For the entire 2026 year across all of our channels, we will be changing the conversation. So instead of talking about hypothetically about what you could be doing, we are hyper focused on what is being done and done quite well, I might add. So for the month of March, the conversation is about community engagement, what it looks like when it's done right, and what it looks like when it's not quite right. I couldn't think of a person better suited to have this conversation with than Linda Urata. Thank you so much for being with us, Linda, and taking the time out of your very busy schedule to hang out with us today.
Hi, Rochelle. Thank you for having me. I have to say, now that I'm retired, it's busy watching the grass grow, so or holding grandbabies. So I'm happy to be here. As for me, I'll give you a brief introduction of my to myself. I imagine most of you don't know me. I graduated from UCLA a long time ago. I have professional experience in nonprofit organizations, alternative fuel vehicles and fueling or charging, grant writing and grant management, and transportation planning. I have volunteered at my schools, Go Room Moms and Band Moms, church, and served as a board member. I worked for Campfire Boys and Girls. I served as executive director of Project Clean Air, and I am a founding member of the Tree Foundation of Kern. I was the San Joaquin Valley Clean Cities Coordinator, a United States Department of Energy alternative fuels program. As a regional planner for Kern Council of Governments, I was responsible for the Kern Energy Watch program, rideshare, and mobility innovations, which included developing and implementing the Kern EV charging station blueprint and developing the Kern medium duty and heavy duty zero emission vehicle blueprint. I've served on air quality and energy work groups for the California Partnership for the San Joaquin Valley and Greater Bakersfield Vision 2020. And I am a board member of the San Joaquin Valley Clean Energy Organization. And I'm really happy to be here with you today to talk about community engagement.
It is our pleasure, Linda, and we certainly are lucky to have you on our board of directors, and we always appreciate your guidance and your oversight. So I do want to kick things off today. We are talking about community engagement. I want to kick things off today by talking about the importance of meeting people where they are and not necessarily where you want them to be, right? So,
Right.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
Linda, a fair amount of your work, as you were alluding to a moment ago, has been focused on encouraging electric vehicle adoption in the San Joaquin Valley, which in itself has its own set of challenges. But to do this, you've done EV outreach in a whole slew of different venues, right? Like
Right.
festivals and community cleanup days and grocery store parking lots. And so I would like to get a little bit of insight from you. How did you kind of start to zero in on the kinds of community spaces where people are actually open and willing to engage?
Well, I think I'm going to take it back um, just to the realm of my experience, which starts with your family around the dinner table or at Sunday school or in student government, being a student in a classroom or in a campfire group, places where you have conversations with people who are not exactly like you, who look different, who come from different economic backgrounds, and working on things together. So I think that's kind of been built into my DNA over a lifetime. At UCLA, I was on the Mardi Gras planning committee and I worked on marketing and outreach. And so that's probably where I learned a lot about different ways to engage different audiences, especially around a certain event. Um, all of those experiences have had a financial aspect to the training, and I think that's really important to keep in mind when you're doing your community engagement and outreach is what are your resources, financial, are they otherwise? Do you have somebody with technical experience? Do you have somebody who's a photographer? Um, so you can do this inexpensively or you can do it with a good sized budget. Um, at Project Clean Air, I was the executive director, and then later a board member. But I got a lot of training from people like the marketing and government affairs person, for instance, for at the time it was Shell Energy, and then they moved on to becoming Era Energy. So I had some really talented, and a lot of them were women, a lot of talented people in that workspace giving me guidance and training. I took classes whenever I could, Cal State Bakersfield nonprofit certification program, others like those, if wherever you can get training and outreach. As the Clean Cities Coordinator, I got that training from the Department of Energy and from my peers. And even the media in our smaller markets here, especially in Fresno and Bakersfield that I've worked with, the reporters and camera people are happy to give you some tips and pointers if you need those. I'm always happy to edit you. So meeting people, for me has been everything from going door to door with our Energy Watch campaign. We did door to door canvassing. And we brought them packets of energy efficient materials and we gave them postcards where they could log into a website or enter drawings. To me, the one-on-one engagement with the community is really the most important. And what I've found, whether you're going door to door or you're out at an event working at a booth, um, most of that is listening to people, asking them questions. What do they need? What do they want? Identify a problem and then work towards how your, in this case, zero emission vehicles, whether that's electric or I have to remind people hydrogen fuel cells are also zero emission. So proposing solutions that will work in that for that person, for that community, for that situation. So I think that's at the core of community engagement is learning about your community to begin with.
Oh yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And you're right. Like, a lot of the conversation does tend to be around EVs, but we can't forget that hydrogen vehicles are also clean air vehicles as well. So,
Well,
um,
and I like to go back to all those other experiences because so many people think, oh, I've never talked to a group of people or I've never had a conversation. But if you think back to being in a group or in a Sunday school class where you had to raise your hand or any of those things, you can draw on your own experience in a number of ways.
yeah. Well, I have another question for you, Linda, and you'll have to forgive me, I might be baiting you into a little bit of story time here, but can you share a moment when an unexpected location or partner or something of that nature ended up being far more impactful than you anticipated?
Yeah, we did a test drive. We partnered with an organization that was doing them statewide. I and we helped them with the local organization of the event. So first of all, when you're planning the test drive, it's knowing where to hold it. You want the foot traffic day by day. You want it to be someplace they can organize, and you want it someplace that the people driving the cars can always make right turns, makes it safer for everybody and where they're not crossing over with pedestrians. So we held one at the Panera on California. It was in the same parking lot as a grocery store, a Whole Foods market, a craft store, lots of restaurants. And so there was already a good public draw. We were able to do outreach, which we'll cover more later. Um, and then right in that same parking lot, we were very close to a Panera restaurant. And through that introduction, Panera ended up putting in charging stations. And I've been by that place now at night and seen a line of people waiting to charge. There's cars there all the time. And the company that we partnered with, actually, we took drone footage during the event of people at the event and vehicles driving along. And so the company that we worked with has now used that drone footage for their outreach and media campaigns. We posted it to our own websites, and we used it in other workshops and symposiums. So that's one story. Another is at the Doubletree Hotel on Rosedale Highway, where we held our transitions. That's a conference for transit operators and zero transit transitioning to electric or hydrogen. And after that conference in particular, where we made sure we talked with the general manager, we always invite them to have their staff and others at these big events. And now they have Tesla superchargers in their parking lot. And they also promote the local zero emission Get Bus shuttles at their check-in desks, which was kind of a nice add in. Um, what's common with both of those locations is that they're near a highway, they have local customers and visitor traffic. Um, it's moderate to higher income guests typically at those locations. And the business case was easy for them. If you're charging your car, you're likely to walk into the Panera and grab lunch. If you're at the hotel, you're there anyway, so you want someplace where you can charge your car. So those were the things that we had found in common, as well as some of that surprise extension beyond what when we hosted the one event that one day, and now it's turned into an ongoing program.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I bet it's so nice to see kind of like the fruits of your efforts, that that Panera maybe had never even considered putting charging stations and, you know,
No,
now they're there. So that's exciting.
right.
Yeah.
I even have seen local buses charging there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing who uses the station. It's kind of fun.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So, yeah, well, that's so awesome, and I love hearing stories like that. One of the other things that I'm kind of hearing coming out of our conversation and some of our other conversations that we've had is like it's really important to give people multiple ways to engage, right? So,
correct.
you had mentioned before that like the ride and drive events were kind of where, a lot of your efforts had started. But you've built a lot of creative kind of, I'm going to put these in quotations, on ramps, for people who aren't quite ready to make that jump or to hop into an EV. So can you tell us a little bit about like what you've learned about offering people different ways to connect with EVs?
Yeah, I think most of our conversation or people who are listening are thinking in terms of the light duty over the road. But already I've mentioned heavy duty transit buses. So I don't want to forget that there's opportunity there for heavy duty, whether it's buses or trucks, and medium duty like delivery vans. You'll see tons of Transit Connect little vans going around delivering for florists and bakeries and all kinds of things now. So keep your options wide open for you. Some of them are food banks. A lot of food banks are now using zero emission refrigerated trucks. That's a huge market in and of itself. So as far as those creative on-ramps, um, I have a workshop that we developed. I'll have to brag about it, but we developed a workshop for the Kern Community College District. I don't know, yeah, you can't really see it, but there's a whole book.
Yeah.
And it's important to learn how to, if you're a nonprofit, especially marrying your mission to your marketing and how this could work, and in more ways than I could cover in just today's conversation. So maybe we'll put up my email later, and I'd be happy to email the guide to people. But we've learned for let's just take in that one advantage, one of ride and drives. We had the before the event, we had outreach to dealerships, and that's in person. We had outreach to our potential partners, which were both people who met routinely to plan the event or to have a booth at our event, and that could be done by email or in person. The outreach to general public was advertising, and we hit it all: radio, television, newsprint, flyers. We even put at the Panera event, we put flyers in a local school's teacher mailboxes to invite teachers to come to the event because they were installing solar at the schools and starting to put in charging for the teachers. So we invited them to the event. The beauty of a test drive is that they can drive more than one make or model in one location. So without the pressure of a sales pitch. We had outreach at the start, as you mentioned, to the people who already drive them. We called this section of our event the inside track, and you could go to over and talk to somebody who drives an EV and ask them about it. And then there's also social media, spectrum, digital advertising. It goes on. Some of the things for the general public that were important were offering prizes, test drives for tacos, t-shirts, whatever, giveaways or who else might be there. Sometimes it would be inviting a celebrity who drives an EV to come to the event. Sometimes we would do live radio remotes. So like you said, you kind of name it. We've tried it. We've done it all. And they've worked to varying degrees and in different situations. We've even tried putting inserts in utility mailers. There's all kinds of, the sky's the limit. You can use your imagination. At the event, we do before and after surveys of the test drives. And the EV charging stations, we put up maps of the local areas and people can put dots where they want a charging station. And that's just a great way to get local community engagement. And it's funny because I have people who see me at more than one event and they come and they complain, hey, I put a dot there last year and I still don't have my charging station. When are you going to get on that? It's like, well, it was a survey, it wasn't a promise, but people really want to hold you to it, when you're out there asking. So that's a good thing to remember too. And then after the event, I'm giving reports back to the community, reports back to the sponsors, even if it's just announcing who won a prize. But announcing the results is really important as well.
Oh, yeah.
So I hope at Kern Council of Governments, when we were doing community meetings, we had the clickers where you put things up on the screen and people can click their response. And again, some of that data you can capture. And then that's useful as you develop your future outreach. It's useful for when you're writing grants. It's useful for grant reporting. So there's a lot of different ways that this information can be gathered and used and help further your cause.
Yeah. Well, I'm feeling like, you just kind of throw a lot of things on the wall and see what sticks. Sometimes that's, a
Yeah.
strategy.
That's right. And also you're not the only one there, right? So you have other partners who are also there doing their outreach. And so yeah, we're all seeing what sticks and where it's going to go.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I do kind of want to build on that idea of partnerships, because this work that you do and have done, it wasn't done in a vacuum, right? It almost kind of takes a village or a really good network to be very successful. So, can you just kind of elaborate a little bit about what goes into building partnerships that actually work, right?
I think it's considering, first of all, you have to, as an organization, let's say we're talking to a nonprofit, you have to look at what your organization's goals are and what you're trying to accomplish. But you also might be partnered up with somebody else who has their own goals. So back in the day, we used to have what we called the Blue Sky Partners. And it was a group of organizations, the Lung Association, they want to talk about, lung health. The Air District, they want to talk about air quality. The bicyclers, they want to talk about riding your bike to work, as well as for fun and how to do that safely. Um, Project Clean Air, again, all of those, all of the above. We wanted to also talk about zero emission transportation. Our local transit agencies wanted, how do we get people to ride our bus? The buses are moving to zero emission. So how do we get people on the bus? So it made sense for all of us, for all of those different things, to host events and to host ad campaigns and things, because that made sense from a partnership standpoint. Um, but there's also local businesses and local governments that have their own reasons for doing it. I mentioned utilities earlier. With our air district, there's rideshare compliance. It's called Rule 9001 is what it used to be called, at least. But it's employers of 100 or more who need to show that they're working to get people to come to work besides just one person in one car. And electric vehicles is one of the ways that they comply with that rule. So if they put in a charging station at their work site, then that becomes a compliance for them. And so then they're happy to host us to come in and talk with their employees, whether it's at the planning stage or if it's to hold an event or to celebrate the opening of a station. There's a lot of different ways or reasons for you to partner with regarding EVs for that sector. Um, and so for some of them, like Memorial Hospital, without even talking to us, they had put in a charging station because a lot of doctors and nurses were starting to buy electric vehicles. So they put in a charging station at their location. So we contacted them and they said, yes, we held a conference they had a meeting room that was of large size, great screens, and we were able to host an event at their site. Some of your partners bring in sponsorship money. Some of them bring in employee outreach to their own employees. Some can help you with planning events or hosting events, or with communications on events. If you're not the prime communicator, let them do the TV interview. Let them have their logo shirt on and do the TV interview and get people to come to your events. And what they get out of it is either, like I said, compliance with the rule, employee satisfaction, community goodwill, decreased risk for program implementation if they're working with people who know how to work an EV, or what are the pitfalls of setting up a charging station, or how do you go through the permitting process. All of those might be ways that you serve your community besides just doing community engagement as an awareness campaign. You can actually provide a lot of solid support, and be a true partner. Actually, they may not have time to run down 3 different vendors. So maybe that's something as a nonprofit you can do, or you already have a vendor list. So there's a lot of ways that people can become engaged with their own communities.
Yeah. It's almost like when you put your resources together, everyone benefits.
Wow, who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Yeah,
Exactly. No,
yeah.
that's fantastic. I have a few final thoughts here. Linda, you have been amazing. Thank you again so much for hanging out with us. I do kind of want to touch a little bit on that kind of human behavior element, as we kind of close out here. So, you have heard a lot of different things about EVs. So, I kind of want to talk a little bit about how you've worked to overcome some of those like perceptions, right, of the thing you're trying to get people to jump on board with, or how you've been able to kind of overcome some of that human behavior. Um,
Okay. Um, Well, the first thing is, a lesson I learned at, let's say, campfire, having your little kids out in front of a grocery store trying to sell. We just had Girl Scout cookie sales here in town, but it might be campfire candy is what we had. And you're going to hear no. You're going to hear no. You're going to hear from people who aren't interested. You're going to have people just walk right by and not even look at you. But for every one of those, there's probably 5 people who will stop and say yes. And maybe they don't want to buy candy, but they'll put $1 in your jar. And so it might be um, that the person isn't interested in buying an electric car. Maybe they've even thought about it and it's not going to work for their lifestyle, but they're willing to perhaps listen to you about some of these other opportunities where they can participate. So that's one solution of how to turn a no into a yes or a maybe.
yeah.
Another example is in church. One of the lessons that we learn is um, you try to plant a seed on a rock, it's not going to grow. If you try to plant a seed on the sand, the water won't hold and, it might just shrivel and die. But if you really work to make the soil fertile, then you're going to be planting seeds that will grow and thrive and bear fruit. And I think that's what you do when you're establishing partnerships or when you're engaging in your community. You have to think about it as creating fertile soil. And maybe you're not the one. I mean, I'm not operating the Tesla station at the hotel, right? But I've talked to the Tesla person who then contacted, they were at our conference and they said, wow, this would be a really great location, or the Hard Rock hotel that just opened at the South Valley. And they didn't open one yet at the Hard Rock. They weren't ready, but they opened some superchargers nearby. So it's finding a way to make it an open and friendly place for these things to happen. And that's overall going to help your community.
Yeah. And I really love that analogy of the making the soil fertile. I think that's something I'm going to take with me. I know one of the, just a thought here on persistence. I was always taught that no never means no, it means not right now.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that a lot too. Right.
Yeah. And so kind
Yeah.
of if you keep that in mind, it does help you, remain persistent and kind of keep going in the face of people who might be resistant to new technology or new ideas or new things. So,
Well, and for instance, in the EV sector, you'll hear a lot of people who don't believe in climate change. Well, that's okay. If you can certainly talk to them about poor air quality. They can't deny that they're breathing bad air. They can't deny that people are missing work because of asthma, whether it's themselves or their children. They may have other health concerns or ag crops are down because of air quality. So whether it's industry impacts, they may have to pay more money to comply with regulations for clean air when it could be done by the mobile sector. So there's a lot of other reasons why people might do it, and it's just being persistent at presenting your message of this is good for you. Eat your vegetables. But yeah, so I think those are things, whether you're doing it for the next generation or you're doing it for yourself, whether you're doing it for money or you're doing it for the environment, whether you're doing it, there's find your why, and then that will help you to stay persistent.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, thank you so much. Hopefully our listeners have, gotten something that they can take with them and, will help them on along their journey as well. I do want to thank all of our listeners again for joining us.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you too again, Linda, for hanging out. And it's been such a pleasure hanging out with you and kind of conversing with you. So I'm glad I had an excuse to reach out to you and to connect. And if any of our listeners, if you have any follow-up questions, we would absolutely love to hear from you. You can connect with us on any one of many platforms. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, or you can just visit our website at sjvceo.com, where we have tons of resources, including our monthly playlists. Thanks again, everyone. Until next time.
Bye.